Hello and welcome back to the studio. I've got a very special guest with me today, a man whose work I have admired for several years. It is Dariush Kanani.
Hello there.
I first encountered Dariush on Instagram. I'm sure many of us did. It quickly became apparent to me that he is an expert in the playing styles of many of my favourite guitarists, especially those that embody what has become known as the folk blues revival of the 1960s. I'm talking about Bert Jansch, John Renbourn, Davy Graham, all that kind of delicious guitar playing. Dariush is a specialist in this style of music. He teaches, he gives masterclasses all over Europe. Really the man to talk to about this sort of thing. So, thank you for coming today. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks, Michael. It's lovely to be here.
Let's start with John. John Renbourn, founding member of Pentangle and solo artist, and very much one of the trifecta of players at the heart of the British fingerstyle scene. What are you going to play for us?
Well, I thought I'd show a little bit of John's Lady Nothing's Toy Puffe.
Lady Nothing's Toy Puffe.
Yeah.
Now, I thought that this was from the Sir John a Lot of Merry England's Music Thing and Ye Green Night album. But I stand corrected, it was from Another Monday.
It's from the Another Monday record, the record just before that one, yeah.
This is really interesting because, as Dariush pointed out as we were getting set up, this is kind of a pivotal piece for John. Maybe the start of his foray into medieval textures, which of course he explored in a later record. So, let's have a little look.
Sure.
Beautiful, man. Thank you very much indeed. So, let's start with the most immediate question. What's the tuning there? Because obviously it's not standard.
Yeah, so you just take the E string down to D.
Oh, it's literally just drop D?
Yeah, that's all.
Right,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So is this also from a sort of pre-Dadgad version of Renbourn? Was he...
Yes, I would say so. John was, if you go back to his very first album, the John Renbourn self-titled album, there are some altered tunings on there. Like you've got a doubled up string, I think, on one of the tunes, like a double D, so the G comes down all the way to D.
Wow.
The Wildest Pig in Captivity, that tune is in that tuning.
It's quite intense.
Yeah, so he was delving into sort of experimenting, really. But the Dadgad thing, it didn't seem like John had sort of taken into until maybe the early 70s, perhaps.
Right, okay.
Whereas Bert, say, was into it, you know, in about 65, 66 sort of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some very Renbournian phrasing and architecture here. What would you say is the defining character of John's playing?
The clarity in his playing is so him. John had a very light... Well, as he went through his playing career, his touch got very light.
Didn't it?
Yeah. When he was playing sort of in the mid-60s, particularly when he was doing the Bert and John stuff and that kind of thing, he would sort of flip between a very light touch and then at times he would really, give it a good twang. Yeah. And to sort of maybe spar with Bert in that way and give it that kind of, that spitting on the guitar type thing, as Stefan Grossman says. But as time went on, his touch got so light, and he did use very light strings as well, John. I
remember that.
Yeah. I think it was probably harder to do that in the mid '60s because the availability of gauges was not so easy. It was kind of just, I've heard even it was like 13s was like standard.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they would, if you listen back to those early John records, solo records, and also Bert and John, you hear they're often down a tone, half a tone, something, anything in between all of that. So if you're trying to play along with that stuff, sometimes you go, oh, they're not quite even half a step down.
Absolutely, yeah.
They're maybe a step down with a capo on the second fret, or so it's a little bit of guesswork sometimes in that sense. But I think as he, strings became a little bit more available, he did sort of do custom, his own kind of custom version of gauge strings. Right. Apparently he liked I think it was an 18 on the G string, which is very light. He always said that he thought guitar strings, the middle strings were always too heavy, just generally. He always felt that as a...
That's something that I've been talking to a lot of people about.
Yeah.
Quite recently, in fact.
Yes.
I've got my own theories about that. And I tend to agree. I mean, certainly from the point of view of expressive playing, the idea of something that you can use your vibrato and your bends on. If you're on a gauge 13 to 56 set, that starts to hurt and start tuning.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It'll tear your fingers up, kind of, if given so. And John would, John liked the old bends. He would his influences were across the board. Musically, he was very into country blues music and electric blues players, and of course the classical composers, world music, jazz, folk music, Celtic. So you hear John getting a few bent notes in there, here and there, for sure.
And on his electric playing as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
That stuff with him on a Gibson semi-acoustic with a fairly evil fuzz pedal. It's just glorious. There's a solo to Lord Franklin that I absolutely love. It's just... It's anarchic and it's weird and stylistically, it's not the first thing I would have thought of as a producer. What this needs is a fingerstyle fuzz solo, but it fits.
It does. It sort of takes you back when you hear it, but it's so right somehow.
I think he's got it voiced almost like a shawm or bagpipes or something like that. It's really this sort of nasal thing. But we digress. One thing that you've spoken about. Obviously, we went for a preemptive coffee. Before we started this conversation, Dariush and we've just met, so although it was very tempting to ask him all sorts of questions, I'd be very curious, how someone gets into this style of music, because we're relatively rare, even here in the UK, but I decided to save it all for when we were rolling, so it's all going to come out right now. You had spoken, and I think this is a very, very good point, about John's use of counterpoint within his compositions.
Yeah. So I think, and that particular piece, I believe, I think he composed that when he was still at school.
That's just
at music college, even. Right. And he kind of maybe filed it away, for years. And then when it came time to make a record, he needed material. And so perhaps he remembered that piece. And the interesting thing about that particular piece, in relation to the rest of the album, the Another Monday album, is it's a definite signpost as to where he would go musically in the coming years. So you get to the next album, Sir John a Lot, and it's the medieval influence is so there.
Absolutely.
And it's mixed with jazz and folk and blues and all that as well. But the Another Monday record itself is very folk bluesy. With the exception of that and maybe another tune, but that really was it really showed. And John would compose, on manuscript.
Yes, indeed.
And he would write the bass parts and the treble parts and the mid parts as if it was a proper score, as opposed to maybe picking up the guitar and having a riff.
Your way through.
Yeah. He would compose like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think Clive does that too, doesn't he?
He
Clive
does.
Carroll. He just sort of writes it all down and then teaches himself how to play
That's right. Yeah.
It's quite frightening, really, isn't it?
Yes. No. John would have ideas, melody ideas and bass figures and things, and he would work them out on the piano.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, quite frequently,
wow.
And then he would write them down. Manuscript, and then later on he would teach himself how to play it, and then often tunings, like later in John's career, sort of into the 70s certainly, you get to albums like The Hermit and things. There's lots of different tunings on that, but like a lot of guitarists, they fiddle around and want to go with open tunings, and it's very exciting and everything. The tunings were very much just a tool to be able to play the piece of music, so he would experiment with different different voicings, different tunings.
So the music came first.
Yes, definitely.
And then the tuning was adapted to it.
Absolutely.
Rather than just finding, a massive C minor 9 chord and going, hey, this'll do.
Yes, yes. Which I'm sure he was partial to here and there as well, but that's definitely how he operated. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Another thing that I love about John's playing is the influence of jazz and soul.
Yeah.
And it's more than just Mingus, which was obviously running through the Pentangle stuff, especially that first Mingus album. But definitely his love of modern pop of the time, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. John's ears were just open to everything, it seemed. And, like you say, there were certain hot records that were flying about the scene at the time, the Mingus one and Jimmy Jeffrey, that was it, like Jazz on a Summer's Day, was it that one? The Kind of Blue record, things that Davy was listening to, essentially, Davy Graham, and it was kind of like whatever Davy was into, like he was the Pied Piper, everyone had to kind of be listening to what he was listening to. But John's musical listening was so vast, and like on that Sir John a Lot album, you had a Booker T. Jones number, R&B numbers, you had kind of a Chico Hamilton thing in Transfusion, very jazz tinged blues, you know. You had on the previous album as well, Another Monday, you had Buffalo, which was kind of came from Davy Graham's repertoire, from the Guitar Player album, which John then learnt and included his own take on that, and that was a modern jazz number by Kenny Dorham, and it's a blues, essentially. It's a 12 bar, but you have this cool, instead of going to the turnaround, instead of going to a 5, you have this.
So tasty.
And it's that lovely jazz infused blues, that just kind of gets you away from a typical 145 a little bit,
Absolutely.
Yeah. My Dear Boy, that was a piece when I first heard that piece, it was like a lightning bulb moment, It's a blues based thing with lots of these jazzy chords and that kind of thing. So you have
you have with you pretty much the standard weapon of choice for this kind of music. What's your guitar?
Yeah, so this is a Martin OM28V. It's the smaller bodied guitar kind of style, perfect for fingerstyle playing. It's got the V sort of profile neck on it, which is quite nice for getting your thumb over on the left hand and stuff. I came across these guitars probably about 15 odd years ago. I was playing various other things before that, but I had my sights set on a Martin. Once I saw people like Bert playing one, and and Davy, of course, and it was like Martin was my heart's desire. So I was very fortunate to find this thing, and it's been my other guitars have kind of come and gone over the years, but this has been with me for well over 15 years now, I'd say.
Wow, yeah, that's definitely the instrument that I associate you with, and it's a real pleasure to hear it live and up close.
Davy Graham had a record called The Guitar Player.
Yes.
And it's got a kind of an iconic cover now, like there's that blue background, Davy's wearing a suit and tie, a big grin, and he's positioned with a Gibson J50, and the playing on that record is just second to none, and it really influenced, Wiz Jones loved it, John and Bert, and they were mesmerised by that stuff. And of course he had the Gibson J50, and so then everyone had to have a Gibson J50.
Where do you get it? Where do you find one?
Exactly. But the funny thing was that Davy didn't record that album on a Gibson J50. It was actually recorded on something closer to this. It was
Really?
it was a Martin 00018, I think.
Right.
And the story goes that Davy actually went to a party, after the record had been recorded, set his guitar down as with many other people who had brought their guitars to the party.
Yeah.
When the party had finished, he picked up the wrong guitar and didn't realise till he got home and opened the case, there was a Gibson J50.
Oh.
And it came time to do the photo shoot for the record, and
It was
that
all
was
he had.
what he had. So it inadvertently influenced the whole British guitar sound, and those guitars really do have a voice, like...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like those John albums from the 60s, that Gibson J50 voice is so defined, and I had the great pleasure to play it earlier this year, that very one, and right away you go, oh yeah, it's like it has that thing, and it's actually kind of how you can differentiate between Bert and John on that Bert and John record. At times it's hard to tell who's doing what, but there is something about that J50 sound that just is not like a Martin. You can single it out.
I understand that you have something rather exciting coming up from a mutual friend of ours.
Yes, very exciting indeed. It's a Ralph Bown OM.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and it's nearly done.
Is it?
It's nearly done. It's a matter of a few weeks away or so.
Fantastic! Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm very much looking forward to it. Ralph is, an absolute master guitar builder, and he built for John Renbourn. He builds for Clive Carroll. He's built for many other quite big names and everything, and he's based up in York in England.
He is indeed.
Yeah. So it's very nice to be have that connection with someone who built for John and Clive, and that was how I came to know about Ralph, was through that. Those guys. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's an OM, so full scale.
Full scale.
What are the naughty bits? What have we got on the back and sides and the lid?
Well, the naughty bits, we've got Madagascan back and sides.
Very nice.
And we've got a Sitka spruce top. This particular guitar, it's a V neck, modified V. I've got quite used to the V. I love a C neck as well, but I've gone for sort of a less prominent V, just a slight V with Ralph's, just to give it, because I do like that thing about reaching your thumb over it makes it a little easier. Ralph tends to the OM string spacing here. Ralph increases a little bit.
One of 13/16ths.
Quite possible, yeah. So it's not quite classical, but it's something in the middle, and you can really tell. Like it's a little adjustment, but you hear the note separation a lot clearer, I feel.
Absolutely.
We've got a couple of nice little custom elements. Ralph's put a couple of turquoise stones dots in on the actual fingerboard and the dots there, and
so you've resisted having your name written up the fretboard in.
Well, I thought
Mother of
maybe
Pearl.
five gold stars, and then a big Dariush there, like, But I was
a strong look.
I decided against it in the end.
did?
Yeah.
That's remarkably restrained. We have a family of magpies in that tree,
Oh, lovely.
so that's why we're getting all this mad cackling going on from outside. I
nice,
must
it?
apologise.
It adds to the atmosphere, doesn't it?
It's all a bit season of the witch around here already. So from the filigreed, semi-medieval, bluesy stylings of John Renbourn, we're now going up to the wilds of Scotland, from Glasgow down to London, to the Gyre and Gimble Folk Club and Les Cousins. We're looking at the work of Bert Jansch. I grew up on Bert's Blue album, I'm sure you probably did too.
100%,
Yeah, recorded in Bill Leader's flat in the 1960s. An extraordinary record and an incredible introduction to anybody who is going to spend, whether they know it or not, a life with an acoustic guitar in their hands. Now, you're going to show us something from a slightly later part of Bert's career, where he's moved into dadgad tuning, which we will look at in greater depth when we move to Davy Graham later on in this video. What do you have for us?
Well, I thought I'd show a little bit of Bert's arrangement of The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, the Ewan McCall song.
Which, for originally a folk song, became an incredible soul hit as well, with a devastating cover by Roberta Flack. This takes it somewhere again into different territory.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was the Roberta Flack version I heard first, and so when I heard this later, it was like, oh, that's not even the same song, you know.
That is very tasty indeed, isn't it?
It's a nice piece.
It is.
Nice arrangement.
So all sorts of interesting things going on here. First of all, we're in Dadget tuning, which, as many of you know, is my own standard tuning. I haven't really used anything else since about 2001. We'll look more at Dadget when we go on to Davy, as I said. But I think Bert's use of the tuning was particularly interesting. It was at a formative time in the acoustic guitar repertoire's development.
Yeah.
I think many of Bert's initial explorations have become part of the canon. I think we all use that sort of, especially down here in the bass end of things.
Yes.
And it's not just the notoriously sticky-fingered Jimmy Page, who was all over this from the get-go. But, you know, there's so much going on there. But it's incredibly rich. What is it about this particular piece of music that makes it so Bert?
Well, it always fascinates me, this area of Bert's playing and his arranging style in this tuning and in drop D tuning. It comes from the Jack Orion record of '66, where it was pretty much all traditional material. He was very much influenced by Anne Briggs, the singer.
Exactly.
Yeah, the traditional revivalist singer
who sang a cappella.
Yes, yeah, and just brought these old songs to life, you know, and she had all of that ornamentation, like the Irish ornamentation in her singing style, and she really got Bert into a lot of that material and introduced him to a lot of that material, and Bert being Bert, he absorbed it in his own, the way his mind worked, and what I always try to get across, particularly if I'm teaching this stuff in workshops and whatnot, is really try to think of it as Bert trying to bring in these vocal ornaments into the guitar playing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it is a very sort of vocal, lyrical way of playing.
Yes. You know, you have these which is become very Celtic. You know, these rolls.
Especially that slur into the, what's that?
He would be trying to sort of mimic Anne Briggs' style of sort of singing and getting that onto the guitar, as well as when he would be singing over that, say in the guitar breaks and so on. It's like another voice then.
Absolutely,
with his own.
Bert's voice was obviously a lot deeper.
Yes.
A lot lower. So you've got all this beautiful, very delicate stuff going on as an accompaniment higher than the voice.
Yes.
Which is interesting. That doesn't tend to be the case, especially if you've got a female singer. Normally the guitar's lower down and the voice sort of floats above it.
Yes.
In this case, it's the other way around.
Yes.
And I've always loved that about Bert's work.
It's an incredibly powerful dichotomy in his music. and it became evident to me when you listen to Bert singing underneath what he's playing, is because he's throwing in these trills, these ornaments and whatnot, it actually makes it sound like he's almost doing it with his vocal,
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And at times he's not, but it's the marriage of the two that are sort of feeding off one another, and it makes his vocal sound very, very powerful, you know, with these kind of very intricate guitar arrangements underneath. And of course he had that signature riff, you know, the...
That was first heard on Black Waterside, right?
Yes, it was. That was the first time, I believe it was. Yes, there was a little taste of it on the record before that, the It Don't Bother Me album. Or was it the very end of the Black Waterside riff? I think it could have been the end of the Black Waterside riff there. But he was dabbling in those ideas as early as '65, and that riff really has nothing to do with the song, the piece. He inserted it into 3 pieces: the Black Waterside, First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, and a tune called The Gardener off that album, which they're sort of variations of the same thing, the riff, but they just it's such a powerful riff. It
is quite honestly delicious.
It is.
I could listen to that non-stop all day long. I have it every day for breakfast.
Yes.
It's just wonderful. And it's also, and this is something that may be a little bit difficult to explain to the layperson, if you're not a guitarist, just how satisfying that feels to play.
Oh, it is. You know, once you learn it, you just want to go round and round and round and round and loop it, you know, and you'll drive everyone in the house mad, you know. But the thing about that riff that I try and get across to people in teaching it is it's the phrasing of it. That there's a certain part of the phrasing which is very important, and sometimes people go. Exactly, and it's the hang there. It's that hang. Yeah. Bert had a heavier attack, say, than John.
Yeah.
But he could play very delicately and sweetly as well. But he would have this thing where he would get under the strings, you know, and it had that kind of bite, which is very satisfying,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's part of, for me, the joy of playing the acoustic guitar is there's the haptic side of things. You know, you've got vibrations in both sets of fingertips at the same time. You've got an immediate response from the tiniest little motion from either hand, and you've got the thing just, you know, kicking back literally the sound holes, you know, pretty damn close to your heartbeat, and it's just so rich and rewarding.
Absolutely, and I think he developed that, and it became synonymous with his sound and his style. But I think it was in the early days a way to just be heard in a noisy folk club.
On a borrowed guitar.
Yeah, on maybe a guitar that was hard to play, so he had to dig in, you know.
At 2 a.m.
Exactly.
At the start of his set.
Yeah, exactly, at the start of his set. So it's these, you know, necessity things that can influence, you know, how someone sounds.
Now, Bert wasn't just about drop D, DAGAD, all that sort of stuff. Some of his early, really beautiful works were written in standard tuning. This is one of them, Chambertin. I mean, that's just hypnotic, isn't it?
Very much, that's the word, yeah. perfect word for it, I'd say.
Yeah, just so beautiful. And really interesting to hear ringing strings like that in standard tuning on a steel string guitar. I mean, obviously that's a feature of classical guitar, but at the time, I would say, even now, 99% of what's going on a steel string guitar is cowboy chords in the first position. And I'm sure that was as true in the 1960s as it is today.
So it's amazing the amount of people who've come up to me and said, what tuning is that in, after I've maybe played something of Bert's, that as an example, and the amount of times I say standard and they're really surprised.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it does, like you say, it has these fretted notes combined with these open strings that provides this really rich, quite open sounding, open sound, so you have these these note bleeds into one another. One thing that Bert also really liked to do was double up the same.
Oh yeah, into just like you played it there, almost a Scotch snap. So
exactly, yeah. There's the same notes on two adjacent strings to give it this really kind of drone-like quality. It was a real hallmark of him. And those hypnotic riffs, like you say, that would open up, and new elements. We'd bring in new elements, new top lines. Yeah. And he wasn't a flashy player at all. When you start learning a lot of it, you're so struck by how beautifully composed it all is, how logical the arrangements are. Truly, I think Ralph McTell said this about him, and it was like he was like a sculptor of the guitar. Like he would just have a piece of marble and he would just chip away, bit by bit, until it was how he wanted it. And that's what comes across when you look at his arrangements. They're so masterfully arranged for the fingers. There's not a lot of jumping up and down. There's an open string that allows to ring while you can move your fingers back and whatnot. They're joys to learn,
Now, we mentioned Bert's Blue album.
Yes.
The eponymous solo album. On that record, there was a cut called Angie.
Yes.
Which changed everything. I remember my dad telling me a story about getting that record and working out Angie with two of his mates, one of them on bass, one on the middle. He was playing the melody.
Yep.
And then they realised later that it was one guy, and of course this was devastating news.
Oh, yeah.
Angie was written not by Bert or by Paul Simon, also notoriously sticky-fingered, but by Davy Graham.
Indeed, yeah.
And I think one of the very revealing things that we're going to look at now is the difference between Davy's original version of Angie and where Bert took it next.
Yeah, it's a lot of people's introduction to playing counterpoint fingerstyle piece. A little bit like in slightly other world there of the Chet Atkins world, say Windy and Warm, something
right? Yeah, Taste of Honey, all that sort of good stuff.
Yeah, and it's super. It's super logical. It's got three sections, Angie, and it's got this bass line. This kind of bark.
It's pretty funky.
Yeah, this bark bass line, and you've got the top line. So you've got the two parts going on at the one time, and if you put the two together, and it's all coming out of an A minor shape, pretty much. Not a huge amount of movement. When Davy brought this over in about 1962 to the folk scene, as you say, everyone caught on to it and were learning it, from another person, secondhand, and so it kind of morphed. Everyone had their own way of playing it, and it still is. I played at gigs still. I sometimes open with it. It's a nice one to open with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And most people have heard it somewhere down the road, and and it's open to a little bit of improvisation. Davey might not have agreed there. Bert's take on it really is. When Bert got hold of it, he kind of took it to town a little bit. The tempo sped up a bit.
So Davy wrote it. How would you play Angie in the Davy Graham style?
Well, Davy played it a lot more sort of straight, than say Bert did. There was the main section. And you get to the second section, and Davy's was much more... had one of the first defining features is that chord, the straight E chord. But when Bert played it, he changed it to an E minor there.
Right.
You have the all the way through those three sections.
It really is a beautiful piece of music, isn't it? I mean, I think a lot of people when they first say it, like, oh, it's obviously an A minor with a descending bass, so your pinky goes in, and follows all that. But if your pinky is doing the bass, then you can't lean into those bends.
Exactly.
Further on, so it's not as simple as it might sound in the first time you come across it.
Yes, that there are. I mean, I think Davy would have been using his finger there on that F bass note. I'm using the thumb, just because that's how I play a lot of things.
People do it.
But it's introducing that sort of top line at the end of the first section. Is a lovely addition to the straight, the straight line. With Davy's version as well, so he kind of had that monotonic bass, but not dampened. Whereas Bert, when he would play it, would dampen that, and playing it with the thumb pick, of course. And he also, Davy had the three sections and repeated them, and that was kind of it. Whereas Bert added a little part of Work Song.
Yes, he did.
By Cannonball Adderley. And another little section as well at the end. So it had almost like 5 sections, Bert's version. It was really like stretched out. And there was a little bit more twiddliness as well, if you like.
Show us this twiddliness, Jerry.
So so you had Davy's, and the way Bert might do that would be...
I think we've all written a version of Angie at some point. I know I did. John did Judy, which was kind of Angie backwards, wasn't it? I think it is an important, not just something to aim for, but once you've got there, kind of a stepping stone, a way that opens up the steel string guitar to this solo style and this way of thinking. It's such an important piece of music.
Very much so, and and it doesn't have that kind of alternating bass like you hear so that's kind of more the Chet Atkins kind of thing,
right? The bum chick
thing, whereas this has like a Brunsy bass essentially, that monotonic.
We can understand that,
with Big Bill Brunsy being a huge influence on Davy and Martin Carthy and people. But of course, Brunsy wouldn't have played that particular type of bass line. But the monotonic effect, the just chugging away there. And it really does get, in learning it, it really gets the thumb independent from the fingers, which is the crucial step in playing fingerstyle, is to get that independence. Then a whole world of music will open up to you in your playing, and your arranging, and your writing, whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you'll agree, Dariush, that without Davy, what we do collectively as acoustic guitarists in the UK just wouldn't have happened.
I totally agree, yeah. He doesn't get enough recognition that he really deserves, you know. Davy was sort of the first to go out into the wilderness and see what was out there, and you know, he would go travelling abroad and internally and
yeah, there's that.
And just soak up everything. As Bert once said, you know, he was the only guy he ever met at that time who could hear anything, take anything. It could be a Charles Mingus big band piece or something with all these different parts and instruments and things, and he could just distill it down to one guitar. And he had this remarkable ear, and he was throwing in jazz things. He was obviously, then you had the dadgad thing coming in, which has now become a standard tuning.
And yet, the piece of music that you're going to use as an example of Davy's work, we're still in standard.
Yes, still in standard. This is sort of, I think, maybe just pre his dadgad discovery. My first foray into Davy was the Folk Blues and Beyond album,
right,
which is, you know, an absolute seminal album. It blew me away, changed my life, so to speak. And that's a lot of people's introduction to Davy's playing, and rightly so. But there was an album before that that had, you know, less of a reach. It wasn't on the Decca label that he was signed to from about 1964, with the Shirley Collins album,
right, yeah,
and Folk Blues Beyond. This was on a very small label called Golden Guinea. The album is called The Guitar Player. It was released in 1963, and it's all instrumental, largely interpretations of jazz numbers or sort of pop songs of the time, with a couple of Davy originals in there as well.
Right.
You know, there's like a Sonny Rollins piece. There's a Dave Brubeck Take 5 is on there.
Lovely.
You know, and you have this piece, Sermonette, by the Adderley brothers, and he's playing absolutely fabulous guitar. Like his groove, his timekeeping is stunning. He's singing, and he's playing a Martin as well.
Right, yes.
So it's pre-Gibson.
So the first thing that I notice about that is the ornamentation is coming from ghost notes, little things like that,
Yes.
rather than vibrato or the slurs or,
Yes.
or the sort of thing that you'd find in Bert's work. I found that really interesting.
Yes, it's much more conventional, I would say. More conventional shapes. You know, Davy liked the use of bar chords a lot. Jazz, you know, jazzy sevenths, ninths, that kind of thing, and more traditional shapes, I'd say. Of course, you had characteristic of Davy's playing, and the whole British fingerstyle movement really was this thing of the sixth interval. So.
Yes. I'll put my hand up, guilty as charged. My own playing is absolutely riddled with sixths.
Yeah.
It was something I learned from John.
Yes.
Actually. And that's as much on electric guitar as it is on acoustic. I mean, it's just such a pleasing thing to do.
Very much, yeah. And that was the funny thing when I first heard these guys. It sounded like they were playing loads and loads and loads of chords. And in fact, a lot of the time they were playing sixths. So they sound like tiny little chords almost to me. And once you get a feel for the how they sound, the actual interval itself, and you get, au fait with the positions around the neck and so forth, you've got so much mileage out of those things for improvising with solos. Like Davy did a lovely solo in his Buffalo tune,
Well, listen, man, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming to visit.
Absolute pleasure, Michael. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
I now have to jump in the car, and we're going to take you off to the Turnstone Guitar Workshop.
Yes.
Where you're going to play one of those for the first time. So it's been an exciting day for the lad. It really has. Thank you once again for your time. Thank you for coming to visit. Thank you for this beautiful music. It really has been a genuine pleasure hearing your playing up close. And thank you to you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay tuned.
Thank you.